in San Francisco, he would even give me batteries for the fire alarms. Like, oh, it's the new year. Here's a bunch of 9 volts. You're gonna have to replace.
Wow, why'd
Sounds
you
like
ever
a great
leave?
landlord. Yeah.
You should have asked him to move in with you down here.
I think it's because I'm super low maintenance and I don't break stuff. Like,
Well,
I don't,
also that would, if the place, he doesn't want the place to burn down. So
Yeah.
I mean, the decor is from late 1970, but whatever. Back then everything was, all the countertops still.
Well,
looked,
now it's retro, so
Yeah.
it's back in style.
like it missed the avocado. Actually, he even paid for a new fridge. Like I said, I think a mouse died in this one, and it was really just like,
Whoa.
Whoa.
And he gave me,
Ew.
and his wife gave me $20 to tip the movers. My landlord was awesome. It was
You never
great.
talked this nicely about him when you lived there. That's so funny.
I never talked about him.
No, I
Like-
know.
Now he's like, good rent.
Don't know what you got until it's gone.
Good landlord. Man.
I mean, like, that place is probably high 2000s, low 3000s a month.
I'm sure.
Megan, do you still live in Noe? Did I get that right?
So I used to live in Noe. Now I'm in Coal Valley, though, so one of the other valleys.
Oh, I like that.
Nice. I do
Yeah.
too.
And I mean, my rent's so cheap, though. Like, considering for San Francisco, like I pay under $1,000 a month. So, I
That's
mean,
nice.
yeah,
That's
I
pretty
don't
great.
have a couch or a living room, but
Well, if you like the roommate, it's a great situation.
exactly. We've known each other since we were 14. She was my
Oh,
first girlfriend. Like, we're
Oh,
like
you're
best
right.
friends again. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're super close.
And Coal Valley has some stuff you can go out and hang
Oh
out
yeah,
at,
it's great.
too.
Apparently,
Yeah.
someone told me the other day that it has a 100 walking score.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because like everything is essentially within walking distance, like grocery store, pharmacy, urgent care, just
Wait, are you on top
Pet
or the
food
bottom of
store.
the valley? So, like, do you have to go down to those
yeah, I go
stores?
down. Well, no, so I'm like right in the valley,
Oh, okay.
so it's
The
all
valley's
just
so
right there.
low.
Because I was the one that had to trudge up a hill to get home from the BART station.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But that helps the old ticker. It's all of that. It does.
No, I
Like-
agree.
Physical
Sound like my
locomotion.
grandfather.
All right, so we're about ready to do the show. Sarah, can you read the opening?
I can and I will.
Excellent. That was going to be my next question.
I'm physically able to, Tom. Yes.
I was just checking. I didn't want to assume.
Of
All
course.
right. Everybody ready?
Yep.
Here we go. 3, 2.
Daily Tech News Show is powered by you. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support.
This is the Daily Tech News for Friday, June 22nd, 2018 in Los Angeles. I'm Tom Merritt.
And from Studio Feline, I'm Sarah Lane.
It's the second day of summer in Cleveland. I'm Len Peralta.
And very excited to have Megan Rose Dickey, senior
up?
reporter at TechCrunch, on the show. Hi, Megan.
Hey everyone, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. We're going
Former
to talk.
coworker of mine.
Indeed.
Indeed, indeed. Well, it's good to see you. It's good
You
to see
too, yeah.
In a totally different situation.
We're going to talk with
Exactly.
Megan a little bit about startups and diversity and probably solve all the internet's problems in a little bit. Our producer, Roger Chang, is here putting this whole show together. Roger,
Hello.
thank you. Let's start with a few tech things you should know.
Movie ticket subscription service Cinemia announced new family plans, which now include up to 6 people and up to 3 movies per month per person. A premium option can add IMAX and 3D movies as well. Cinemia works with Fandango, Movie Tickets, and Atom Tickets, and is available in Australia, the UK, Turkey, Canada, and the US.
Twitter announced it was acquiring the trust and safety as a service startup Smite to help it better address issues related to online abuse, harassment, spam, and security on its platform. But it's also decided to immediately shut down access to Smite's API, and it didn't really warn people, leaving some of Smite's existing customers no time to transition to a new service provider. So they're not happy.
Podcast app Pocket Cast is now out of private beta for Android and open to all Android users. Still in beta, just open. The company tweeted that the open beta might have some broken builds, but welcomes the public to test new features by grabbing the app from the Google Play Store. Pocket Cast was acquired in May by a collective group including NPR, WNYC, WBEZ in Chicago, and This American Life.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about some details coming out of the police investigation of the Uber crash in Arizona. A Tempe, Arizona police report says evidence showed that the safety driver in the Uber vehicle that struck and killed a pedestrian was streaming a television show on her phone at the time of the accident. Records from Hulu showed the driver streaming The Voice until approximately the time of the crash, then it stopped. The report calls the accident entirely avoidable because of this. The video shows her looking down for 5+ seconds at a time. The driver, Rafaela Vasquez, could face manslaughter charges. That has not been determined yet.
Well, my first question is always, how does Hulu know for sure that she hadn't given her account to somebody else and this was actually what she was doing?
Fair enough. They don't. They only know that her account was streaming that at the time, right?
Yeah, and granted, I mean, the video showed that she was distracted. Granted, that just because she was distracted and clearly looking at her phone, it doesn't mean that it was Hulu. But if it was her account, then it seems
it all kind
like
of
she probably was.
Yeah, it all kind of fits, and that may be the difference between saying we deem this an avoidable wreck, but we're not sure if we're bringing charges. Is those kind of areas of doubt there?
But
Go
sorry,
ahead, Megan.
Oh, no, I was also just going to say, okay, no, you go. No, I got it. Okay. So
go ahead.
Also just, all right, let me go then. Okay. So I was just going to say that, I mean, yes, the safety driver needs to be paying attention in these autonomous vehicles, but I still think the real problem was the fact that Uber's software didn't act on its own, because that's like the whole promise of these autonomous vehicles, that these cars will be able to make good, sound, safe decisions and theoretically shouldn't need that safety driver. Granted, it didn't help that the software failed, and then on top of that, the safety driver wasn't paying attention. So it was just two things that went wrong. And I don't know, I just want to make sure that we're not totally putting the blame on the driver, although yes, she should have been paying attention.
Yeah, there's more than one and probably more than two reasons that this happened. And you know, I was talking in our Slack earlier, look, it's easy to vilify her, but remember, you're in a car that you've been in for a long time and it hasn't messed up, and you get reliant on that, oh, well, it'll stop itself if there's a problem. You're on an empty road where you don't expect there to be any obstacles. You are not at a crosswalk, so you wouldn't expect someone to walk in front of you. Those aren't excuses, but all of us would be tempted to not pay as much of attention. I would hope that all of us would, you know, if we were in this position, double down and make sure that we didn't give into that temptation. But it's, you know, there are conditions here that would lead you to want to not pay attention. And if you're in this position, you should pay attention. That safety net that she got lulled into experiencing just didn't work this time.
Yeah, I think a big part of this is, you know, these are safety tests. In a perfect world, these cars are going to work so well that people could be able to stream video. You know, it sounds crazy to us, but that's the whole idea, is that the car does the job itself. This is jumping the gun a little bit. So yeah, I don't know. Down the road, maybe she would have been, you know, watching a movie and it wouldn't have been such a big deal, but it's kind of hard to side with somebody who's seeming lax during something that's supposed to be proving what autonomous vehicles are.
Yeah, and I mean, and as it stands today, I mean, well, granted, I'm actually not sure of the law in Arizona, but like at least in California, it is illegal to like have your phone in your hand when you're behind the wheel. So yeah, again, I'm not sure exactly what the legislation is in Arizona.
Well,
but
and how is that a legislation applied in this kind of case where you're doing a test vehicle is another interesting question. Yeah.
I think there's still a lot of like things to be worked out around, you know, liability and yeah.
Let's talk about VidCon, specifically YouTube announcing new revenue options for creators. All creators with 100,000 or more subscribers who are also older than 18 can now offer memberships for $4.99 a month, $5 a month, which includes custom badges, an exclusive emoji, as well as members-only posts and other perks. Creators with more than 10,000 subscribers can offer up to 20 merchandise options from their channel page in partnership with Teespring. Creators who use brand sponsor company FameBit can offer their own merchandise from the same area. YouTube is also adding premieres for scheduling the first stream of pre-recorded video with chat.
So, I mean, one of the complaints about YouTube has been a lack of monetization options, even from some of their biggest stars. And this certainly is an effort to try to allay those fears and say, hey, that thing we were using with YouTube Gaming, now available for everybody. Granted, you have to have 100,000 subscribers, so this isn't going to help you till you get popular. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Does this... How far does this go in calming down the sort of pitchfork crowd?
Well, I don't know. I mean, this definitely seems like YouTube is taking, a page from Patreon and Twitch and some other social networks that are also video based and offering merchandise options. As we all know, merchandise options can be really lucrative. Doesn't mean that if you have 10,000 subscribers, you're going to make a lot of money selling t-shirts. But if you want to put more effort into that, to have YouTube help you build it into the community you've already started to build, I mean, I think some people are probably going to be happy about this. It's also more work.
Yeah, it's absolutely more work. And I mean, I think it's good that YouTube is doing this because, of course, they don't want to lose their creators to other platforms. And I mean, even Instagram just this week announced a longer form like video feature. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot of growing competition in this space.
Yeah, and I think they're taking on Patreon a little bit here too, because having a regular subscription is sort of competing with Patreon. Patreon just announced that they are also going to add the ability to auto deliver merch with a partnership with a merchandise provider. So that YouTube kind of scooped them on that. And the brand sponsor thing is very endemic to YouTube. If I'm I'm Brownie Cameras is my brand. I can now just sell Brownie cameras in my YouTube merchandise section, and that's gonna work really good for branded content.
Megan, do you follow anyone on YouTube that you are not just anybody, but anybody that you are, you're enough of a fan and audience member, loyal, that you would pay $5 a month?
No, but I also don't. I watch very little on YouTube. Like, this is really not for me. I think, remember Francesca Ramsey? She did those videos. This was like years ago. So like this was the last time I was on YouTube, was maybe 4 years ago when she did this video, like shit white girls say to black people or something like that. And I'd buy her merchandise, but now she has her own website and I don't need to do it through YouTube.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Daily Tech News Show, not sponsored by Brownie Cameras. In the case of Carpenter versus the United States, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled 5-4 that police must generally show probable cause and therefore obtain a warrant to obtain cell phone tower records to determine a phone's location. This is just about determining location in the past. It's a very narrow ruling. It doesn't even apply to live tracking. It doesn't apply to data or anything else. But to go to a cell phone company and say, we want you to show us where this phone was in the past by your tower records, you have to get a warrant. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote that the fact that the information is held by a third party does not by itself overcome the user's claim to Fourth Amendment protection. And that had been the case up until now, is courts had ruled, well, if a third party holds information, you don't have an expectation of privacy because the third party knows it. And so therefore you don't need a warrant for this stuff. And the Supreme Court is saying, well, in this case, this is such valuable information just because it's stored with a third party doesn't get rid of your rights. This is a big deal. Like a lot of people are worried about this sort of thing as far as, protecting your privacy. So I think it's maybe unusual that I don't think people would have expected the Supreme Court to rule this way, maybe. Well,
I mean, it seems to me that this is very logical because cell phone data might be held by a third party. If police have a warrant, the fact that they're not maintaining the data from that cell tower, that wouldn't excuse them going after somebody if, again, there's probable cause, and that's all very relative.
Yeah, I think that's the surprising part, is this seems logical, and yet it's also how they ruled.
You just said yesterday you love the Supreme Court justice.
I do. I'm a fan of the Supreme Court. That doesn't mean I agree with them every time.
Exactly. Moving on to Facebook. Facebook expanded its Messenger Kids app outside the US to Canada and Peru and added Spanish and French support in all of these markets. The app also requires parents and children to agree to be kind, be respectful, be safe, and have fun before using the app. Okay. Facebook also added kindness stickers and will also add an appreciation mission to encourage appreciation of friends and family. This app has been criticized by some child psychologists, so clearly Facebook is going real in on how much fun and safe and kind it all is, which is not a bad thing.
You will have fun. You have agreed to have fun.
You will have fun in the Facebook way.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly wanting to, get those people over from Snapchat. And because, I mean, I feel like there's an article every day about how the youths are abandoning Facebook, and Facebook is really needing to try to figure out a way to, maintain that audience. But then on the flip side, like my colleague Sarah Perez, like she's thought deeply about, how she wants her kid to use social media and Facebook. And so, I mean, it's definitely a concern that parents have around privacy. So in this case, like, yes, the app requires the parents to agree to certain things. But yeah, I don't know. Facebook is a tricky place. I've been off of it for a while.
As a parent, I will just make this one observation. This kind of reminds me of what they used to do with breakfast cereals when they wanted to get kids. They would make all these child-friendly things, even though what they were serving, it was a bowl full of sugar. And, I think, especially with so much of the concern being online, whether it's cyberbullying or getting into places you don't think your kid belongs, this just seems like a lot of paint on like a very thin veneer of nice and child friendly without necessarily kind of addressing the innate issues that are within Facebook.
Well, when we announced the launch of Messenger for Kids, there are a lot of things they do in this app to address those issues. I think we need to be fair on that. But your point remains, getting kids used to using Messenger does open them up to, other kids, even if they're approved by parents, to do what kids do. And I think your breakfast cereal analogy is perfect, because what Facebook wants is these 6 to 12-year-olds to grow up to use regular Facebook instead of Snapchat, like Megan was saying. So this is sort of the entryway into getting them in the door. UK solar energy company Bbox is partnering with DC Go to provide off-grid electricity in Lesotho, South Africa, and Swaziland. The product will offer pay-as-you-go use of the solar equipment, and they plan to target people who either don't have access to reliable electricity, including those who use unauthorized grid connections, which a lot of times can be dangerous because they're not properly shielded or monitored. Bbox signed a contract with the Democratic Republic of Congo earlier this month to provide off-grid solar energy to 2.5 million citizens by 2020. I think this is important to note, because a lot of times we think, oh, solar energy, that's what Elon Musk provides to people in suburban areas in Europe and the United States. And this is a great example of how it can be used to provide energy to people who really need it.
Go on, Sarah. No, you go. I went last time. You go.
No, you're my guest. I insist.
I was just gonna say that. I mean, there was that time when after like the crisis in Puerto Rico, like Elon Musk like provided solar energy. So I mean, of course, it's not just yet in suburban areas, but there are really like potential like massive like benefits of really ensuring that this solar energy and this technology is, international.
Yeah, and affordable too.
Right, and affordable, of course.
Yeah. Hey, folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, be sure to subscribe to Daily Tech Headlines at dailytechheadlines.com. So, Megan, 2 stories that you covered recently on TechCrunch caught my eye. One was VC firm Canaan Partners setting aside $20 million of its fund to be allocated for investment by its 2 youngest employees, Hutan Rashidafard, who's 28, and Adina Teklu, who's 27. The other was the story that the number of black women receiving more than $1 million in investment has risen from 12 in 2015 to 34 in 2017. Now, the number of startups led by black women has risen from 84 to 227, so it's still a small percentage. Mm-hmm. But I think the obvious take on these stories is diversity in tech is improving, but still has a long way to go. I think another thing to think about is that if you want to solve a lot of these problems in tech, like we're talking about the abuse of data and privacy, you need different perspectives from founders on the ground floor. It seems like, I'm not saying that these are the panacea, obviously, but these are good programs to help encourage that, right?
Yeah, I mean, with the one with Canaan Partners is super cool. Like I'm really into it because the idea is that, you know, oftentimes, I mean, the VC industry is predominantly older white men, so that's a very limited.
It's like 72%, right? I think according.
Yeah. So it's there are very few like young people of color who actually have a decision in saying like this should get money, this shouldn't get money, etc. So the idea, like what Canaan is kind of betting on, is that by having these two younger people who also just happen to be people of color, that they'll be able to see things that other investors might miss out on, and in doing that, be able to better serve the actual population of the world and not just like one select group of people. And yeah, I mean, as you said earlier, the obvious take is yes, diversity is slowly improving, like at a snail's pace, and there's still work to be done. And I think that'll unfortunately continue to be the story for years to come. That will just be these like minor increments in progress, but no really like massive overarching changes.
I think that one of the reasons that happens is you have people in charge of the companies who, despite their best efforts, have a certain perspective, and they're naturally inclined to say, oh, but this person's really good at this job because they're like me, right? That's true of all of us. And so to combat that, you need different founders who have different perspectives and say, oh, but this person is like me, so I'm gonna bring them along, and then you start to balance out, and you start to look at people based on what kind of ideas they bring in and how good it is, rather than, oh, I just want to have more of the same. So that's why I think these two programs in particular caught my eye as being important, because this is planting the seed. Like you say, it takes a long time for that tree to grow.
Yeah, and some of this came up even just in the Facebook Cambridge Analytica scandal. Like, I saw a lot of people on Twitter saying, you know, like, this is kind of what happens when you have when you don't have a diverse set of people working on problems, like even like beyond, you know, like race, gender, sexual orientation, but just if you don't have a diverse group of people, then you're going to miss out on certain things. Like you need optimists and you need pessimists, like the ones thinking like, okay, what is the worst case scenario? How can this technology be abused? Like what effect could this have, as opposed to all people just kind of all thinking the same way about things and not really thinking about the broader implications.
Going back to Canaan Partners, Megan, I don't know if you know Hutan and Adina or either of them. 28 and 27, you know, as a person in tech and VC, it's like they're not that young. You know?
I know, yeah, they're pretty old.
But as a, you know, as a firm usually is structured, that would be on the younger side, to allocated quite a bit of money. But at the same time, you know, you read a headline like this and you say, oh wow, that's, you know, that's great. You know, they're listening to the youth. They have to, because these two, as well as, you know, many other peers in that age group, you see things that as an older person, not that, you know, once you get to a certain age, you don't know what the tech trends are anymore, but you start, you know, different trends because you live differently.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, they're like, well, Hooten, he goes by Hootie, just, you know, but so like Hootie and Adina, I mean, they started as analysts at the firm, and of course they had been kind of helping with investment decisions, but they had never actually been given the opportunity to, you know, find companies on their own. And Adina was telling me just that, you know, she graduated from Stanford and like still kind of has that network of like just out of college aged friends and acquaintances. And also like something that the people often reference is just, you know, Jeremy Liu, one of the first investors in Snapchat, like it was his one of his partners at the firm, like his teenage daughter, who like told him about Snapchat, and like so you kind of need people like on the ground with the youth to really figure out what this thing is.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to admit this, but more and more I'm like, what is that? Like,
oh yeah,
who's the young person who can explain the context of this to me?
No, for the longest time, my wife was the one who kept me up to date on the cool stuff. And then we both got too old, and it was her younger sister. Now her younger sister's getting older, and we're like, where are the young cool people to make sure we know what's going on? Like if you're in a circle that is homogenous, just think of age, and that will give you an example of like, oh, there are perspectives that you need if you want to stay conversant with what's happening out there.
Well, and the whole idea of diversity being an issue, and yes, going in the right direction, but as you mentioned, Megan, it's a trickle. The more that this gets shaken up, the more that things change, because it's been the same way for a long time, even in Silicon Valley.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're definitely moving in the right direction, but then unfortunately, like, then you see, the infamous Google manifesto, that whole thing, and I was at a dinner last night with Salesforce's Chief Equality Officer, Tony Profit. And, we were just kind of talking about the memo. And he was just saying that, there's a James Damore at every single tech company. Like that could happen anywhere. And really it's about meeting people where they are and not necessarily trying to change their minds, but at least help them to become allies. And he had a lot of great examples that I'm totally blanking on now. but yeah, or something that he said was, yeah, like like an employee might support Black Lives Matter or something, and generally support Black people, but that in this one particular police shooting, like maybe that person thought it was the kid's fault. Maybe they didn't think the police officer was at fault, but it doesn't mean that they're necessarily like anti-Black and don't want you to do well. So I mean, I think the ways that the diversity and inclusion conversation has evolved over the years has begun to include talk around allyship and people being accomplices and actually, trying to understand where people are coming from and then to support them in the workplace.
Yeah, it's about dialogue, right? It's about talking. Yeah.
Absolutely. Speaking of dialogue, thanks to everybody who participates in our subreddit. You can submit stories and also vote on stories at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. We're also on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/dailytechnewsshow. All right, Chris Christensen has some details on using the Amazon Echo in hotels.
This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler with another Tech in Travel Minute. It was mentioned on the show this week that Amazon is rolling out into hotels a special version of their voice assistant, she who must not be named for hospitality. And while I felt a little left out that you announced it without me, I thought I'd add my 2 cents on this. One of the things that's interesting about this is that they are adding additional commands that are appropriate for the hotel, including controlling the drapes and ordering room service and finding out what time the spa is open or whether the pool is open. But the thing that wasn't mentioned is that one of the problems with these devices is knowing what commands are available. So some of the success of this program, and it's only rolling out to 10 Marriotts this summer, but some of the success is going to be dependent on is the signage or the information they give the guests enough information to know all of these special commands, not to mention the fact that this is also just a regular Amazon Echo or something in that family, and do enough people want to use them like they use them at home or not? That's the bet. We'll see. Hotels have certainly been known to invest in things like Android tablets that people don't end up using, or that really fancy clock radio that you just end up unplugging because the light is keeping you awake. So we'll see how successful this project is. If anybody has stayed in one of the hotels that has this, I'd be really interested to hear about your experience. I'm Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler.
Oh man, I'm glad to know it's not just me that unplugs that light.
It's like, depending on the hotel, you know how some hotels have sort of paper thin walls and you can hear the person's TV on the other side. Now you're going to hear the person being like, look at that. It's not working.
No, close the drapes. Close the drapes.
Close. room service.
I mean, it's a great point. You can ask an Echo to tell you commands to use, but people aren't going to know to do that in a lot of cases. So, yeah. All right, let's see what's in the mailbag, Sarah.
Let's do it. Jeff in Pennsylvania has some feedback on our Amazon story and state taxes from yesterday. The main issue with imposing sales tax collection obligations on internet sellers is the sheer number of taxing jurisdictions. There are over 6,000 states and local municipalities who impose state sales and use taxes, and the same item is often taxed differently. Sure, the Amazons of the world, they figure out how to tax correctly, but it's not easy, especially if you're a small company. It might be more of a burden. I'm actually surprised that the Supreme Court changed course here. As in the Quill case, the court essentially said that this was a matter of Congress to fix, at least originally. Congress tried several times over the years, but the bills never went far.
Yeah, and a lot of people pointed out, like, every state that collects sales tax also collects use tax. So even if you order from out of state, you aren't exempt from the tax. We were only talking about the retailers being exempt from the tax. And we were discussing this morning in our Slack about this, 6,000 jurisdictions and how that would be handled. Turns out Amazon does collect local taxes according to itself on its website. It says it collects state and local taxes. So because Roger noticed that when he ordered something from Newegg when he lived in San Francisco, it was a different price than when he ordered it for Glendale because they were charging the different municipal taxes there. So thank you, Jeff. Good to have expertise writing in.
And thanks to everybody who wrote in. We got a lot of good feedback on this one.
Yeah. All right, let's check in with Len Peralta, who has been illustrating during the show. What do you got for us, Len?
Well, I am very happy to see that tech is getting younger and diversifying. And if you remember the show The Muppet Babies, this is it's the tech babies, the VC tech babies who are getting that sweet VC money. I think this is the new show that's going to be on every tech channel. The VC tech babies getting that sweet VC money.
I like that the baby has a Windows onesie.
Like, take the money. Take the money.
That's right.
Take it.
They don't know what to do with it, but that's all right. As long as we're giving it to the youth and diversifying, I think it's all good.
Love it.
That is excellent.
That's
Thank you,
great.
lad.
Thank you,
no
Len.
problem.
And also thanks to Megan Rose Dickey, first time on DTNS, but not the last.
Thank you for having me. No, this was great.
Yeah, it's really fun. We all know what you do all day, but you're not only a writer, but you have podcasts. Tell everybody where they can keep in touch with your work.
Yeah, so I also do a podcast with my colleague Henry Pickvet. It's called Control T. Yep, there it is. And you can subscribe on iTunes. Unfortunately, we don't have a podcast page on our new website, which is unfortunate. But if you see, it's just techcrunch.com/tag/Control T. That's CTRL plus T. And yeah, or follow me on Twitter. I'm just at Megan Rose Dickey. So hit me up.
Excellent. Patrons making my birthday dreams come true. We are up 5 patrons over last month. Wanted to get us to 10 by the end of the month. So thank you. Keep it up. Lots of perks for folks who want to support the show. Not only do you give value back for the value you get from the show, but you get a weekly column. Sarah had an interesting take on the Echo this week. You can check that out at the associate producer level. You got the Slack that I was mentioning earlier. So if you haven't already, why not give us $1? It's only $1 a month at the minimum. Patreon.com/DTNS.
If you have feedback, questions, anything for us, our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. Want to watch us live? We are live Monday through Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 2030 UTC, and find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live.
Back on Monday with Lamar Wilson. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
That was great. Thank you,
Good
Megan.
show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Good show.
Woo.
Yeah, that was fun.
It was great.
Super fun. Yeah. Yes, please come back soon. What are you doing this weekend, Megan? Anything good?
Well, it's Pride, so I'm actually about to hit up the Trans March, and
Is that like Market Street or?
there's a rally at Dolores Park, and then there's a march along Market Street, and there's an after party at El Rio, so it's going to be quite the weekend.
Oh my.
Gotta love El Rio.
Yeah.
Gotta love it.
I remember moving to San Francisco in 1999 and being introduced to Pride Week.
Nice.
I remember when, I don't know if they still do, but El Rio had dollar beers on Mondays.
Oh.
So
I
a lot
don't
of
know.
back in the day of Tech TV, Tom and Roger and I all worked there. Like we would all go on Monday because we're like, it's cheap. Now I'm like,
right,
can you imagine
yeah.
drinking like 90 beers on a Monday, like you know. But at the time we were like, but we're saving money.
Yeah.
The more you drink,
El
the more
Rio's
you
great.
save.
There seemed to be more of those right after the web bubble burst, and then like a lot
More
of
of
those
the
places.
discounts, yeah.
Yeah.
They're like,
totally.
all our patrons are gone because the companies they work for no longer exist. So we need to drum up foot traffic.
So much crowd.
I miss the food. I miss the food the most.
So the Trans March is today, you said?
Yeah, it's today.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Well, Megan, this is the part of the show where I come up with the title for it, and Sarah and Tom.
We're basically just hanging, you know.
We're
Now,
shooting
now
breeze.
it's a Friday fun event, so
Cool.
please stay with us as long as you can. But you know, if you've got other stuff to do, that's
My
great.
faves are Facebook's bowl of sugar, 28 is old in tech, don't Hulu and drive.
Ooh, don't Hulu and drive.
I don't like that one. It's too sad.
That's
is
the only
sad.
problem.
It
It's a
is
good
sad.
title, but yeah, it's really
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah.
Be nice to VC tech babies.
I feel like that implies someone's been mean to them, or
They're
nothing's
also
happened.
not babies.
Right.
I mean, you know.
They're youngish babies.
I remember I had a guest that he used to run back when Palm Pilot was like the thing. He would come on the show once a week, Screensavers, to do his Palm Pilot. I'm trying to remember his name, but he got married, and I was talking to his wife, and like their whole marriage and everything. It's like, yeah, I'm 25, I'm still working on that. It's like, oh, you're just a baby. So even at that point, anything under 30 was still considered to be baby fat. Yeah, you're so.
I remember being like mid-20s, and someone who was in their, I don't know, mid-30s or whatever, would kind of be like, "Oh, you're a child," and it used to really bug me, like, "Excuse you, I have a college degree, I'm an adult,
I live in my own
age
place.
is just a number." Yeah, exactly. But now I find myself having to like, because I feel that way sometimes, where someone's like, "Oh, life is hard," and I'm like, "Dude, turn 40 and then let's talk." Because that's just what happens when you get older,
No, it's because you wisen up and you just want to kind of backhand the next, smart aleck.
But it's not, like it's not supposed to like, diminish anybody's feelings.
Hey, listen, if you have to move
both sides of it, but I think it's just like we just sort of find
if you
ourselves.
have to move back home to your parents in your mid-20s, it's a deal, but it's not that big of a deal. If you're doing it when you're 40, I'm sorry, that's just an entirely different set of issues.
Well, great. If I have to do that, I'll know how that feels.
Wait, Sarah, I thought you were a lot younger. I did not realize that.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
That's news to me.
I get that a lot, like if you get carded and then you give them your ID and they go, "Oh, I'm sorry," and give it back to you, you're like,
wait, why are you apologizing?
well, like, because like you're so much older than I thought you were. So it's like compliment, but also very backhanded. Like you look
It's
young.
always
but
meant
like
well.
Right. Yeah, I think if someone is like, "Whoa, you're only in your 20s. You seemed much older."
Right, yeah,
that would
that-
be more of the.
Actually, there have been a handful of people I mistook to be a lot older than they actually were.
Like,
But it
me
was,
too,
I was,
but I
I was
didn't say it.
thankfully, it was only to other people in the office and never directly to that person. So maybe it got to them in a roundabout way, but not for me. Facebook's bowl of sugar then?
I
Love
just
it.
created sowing the seeds of success as a placeholder. How's that?
Okay, sowing the seed. It sounds like, what was that band?
Tears for
Fears.
Yep.
Sowing.
Sowing the seeds.
Oh, wait, better not. YouTube will flag.
Wait, what were the seeds we were talking about today?
Planting the seed with the young startup people.
Oh, got it.
Can also be
The
allusion
VC tech
to
babies.
prosperity gospel, where you plant.
I'm
the
I'm
seed.
open to changing it. It's just what I
No.
put in while I was waiting.
Oh no, it's good.
All right. I'm going to log off because I'm going to hopefully go to a baseball game this evening.
Oh, Major League Baseball game?
Major League Baseball.
Wow.
Detroit Tigers versus the Cleveland Indians.
Now, are those two, are they bitter rivals or no?
They're in the same division.
And they're close to Cleveland
Yeah.
and Detroit are fairly close to each other.
Yeah. And but the Tigers are not doing well this year.
Oh, okay.
Neither are we, really. We have sort of problems.
Well, what's your favorite ball game snack?
Oh,
food?
tonight is Dollar Dog Night.
I'm gonna fly over there because I'm hungry.
That's where you have 90 hot dogs because
That's
you're
right.
saving money.
Dollar Dog Night. You can't go wrong.
photos.
So hope it doesn't rain out. Because
Find out all the packages say the hot dogs are due today. We got to sell a boatload of these.
These have been here for a month. We got to get rid of these. So.
Just sell them for $1.
Go.
All right, guys. Take care, everybody. Nice meeting you, Megan.
Bye, Len. You too.
Take care.
Yeah.
And don't
I'll
forget to go to
probably-
lenperaltastore.com to check
Yes.
if nothing else, just to check out the art.
I'll have to check that out. But yeah, I'm probably gonna bounce as well. Get ready for the trans march.
Yeah.
Pregame with my cupcakes. So
Right. No, we've been keeping you from your cupcakes. I feel bad.
yeah,
now.
they arrived like 20 minutes ago.
Oh my
so-
gosh, you have to go.
Yeah. But thanks for having me. Hope you guys have a good weekend.
Thanks,
so
Megan.
much for
So good
coming
to
on the
see
show.
you,
All
Megan.
right, you too, Sarah.
Have
Bye.
fun.
That was a good shoe.
Have fun.
was.
It's against your terms of service if you don't. According to
If you
Facebook.
don't have fun,
I have agreed to have fun.
that would actually be a very interesting terms of service.
Well, imagine if a kid's like, I don't agree to this.
I do not want to have fun. This is I'm only going to use Messenger for very serious venture capital related issues.
Some people are serious like that.
I mean, I get what Facebook's doing. They also, the Messenger Kids app, they had changed course, which we reported a couple of weeks ago, where it's like, it used to be, if your mother and your mother are friends, then we can be friends as kids, or mother, father, or whoever. And then it was like, well, but parents aren't always friends, even if kids are really good friends. And that's not necessarily dangerous, but that's not a requirement anymore, because that's the parent version of Facebook is totally different, right?
Well, because that rule almost encouraged the I don't want you to be friends with them. They're not from a good family, right? Like, no, the kid might be totally fine even if you don't like the parents. The parents shouldn't have to be connected on Facebook.
Exactly. I mean, as a child, I
You hung out with a lot of
but like I had certain friends where my parents were not. I mean, they didn't hate them or anything. But
No,
it wasn't
it's
like
just
they were
sort
going to
of a,
hang
like-
out with that other kid's parents.
Yeah, I can't imagine that the Petersons, my best friend in kindergarten, and we still talk on Twitter regularly and play fantasy baseball together. The Petersons wouldn't have wanted to have to be Facebook friends with my parents. It's not like they didn't like each other. They just moved in different worlds, I guess.
Yeah.
Not even that even makes it sound too dramatic. It's like, no, they had their thing and my parents had their thing, and they wouldn't have cared about the kind of things you post on Facebook and vice versa.
Right.
But Jeff and I should have been able to use this, right? So, yeah.
Well, and yeah, I mean, again, we did have tools like this when we were,
No, of
at
course.
this age. But there were some friends where my parents downright did not like the other parents because they didn't like the rules or the lack of rules or whatever it was. The parents they did not vouch for each other, but they also weren't keeping me from having a little kid friend. So this app is sort of like, are you going to be kind and respectful, have some fun? Like, well, then you kind of take the parents out of it, hopefully.
Well, the parents should be approving, like, okay, yes, you can be friends with Jeff, but without putting a burden on the parents.
Right. Yeah. And also, sort of reiterating, adults have all sorts of issues with each other. But if the kids don't, and they all, think of it as a fun sort of playground that's, for their smartphones or whatever, it's not.
I think that one of the biggest objections is 6 to 12. Having Messenger for kids encourages smartphone use, and a lot of people are saying you should be doing the opposite. You shouldn't be encouraging smartphone use. You should be limiting it and using it responsibly.
And in a way, it kind of reminds me of how some parents approach the telephone, right? You don't. Some kids I knew in grade school had their own telephone in their room, and my parents were like, no, there's just one in the house.
Yeah, same here.
And you're not going to be on it all the time talking to your friends. You can talk, and it was very much about being able to moderate. And with smartphones, you can do that to an extent, but I mean, it's not like you want to give them your phone every time they want to talk with their friends. But I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting but also very complicated conundrum.
Definitely.
As soon as you said like we didn't have those tools back then, I immediately thought, oh right, because the way I would get a hold of Jeff Peterson would be I would call him at 664-1475. I still remember the number.
Wait, is that
Sorry
okay
to the
say?
person who now has that number. Well,
you don't know what area code it was, so.
Well, Tom, we know enough about you that somebody could probably figure it out.
Yeah, and I bet they don't have that number anymore.
Probably not. I remember it was sort of like it went from, one line, and there was, a phone in the kitchen and a phone in my parents' bedroom, and that's what it was. And they weren't like wireless or anything.
Yeah,
so
we just had the one.
I had, you could sit on my parents' bed unless they made me leave, or like walk around in the kitchen with a cord. My mom's upset. And then call waiting happened. And so it was like, if I was talking for 3 hours to, I don't know, but a friend in 4th grade, at least somebody else could get through. So it was like, okay, well, this is a little bit better. Sarah can, talk all day as long as emergencies can still come in.
Hold on. Yeah, just a moment. Click. I'm sorry. Someone wants to talk to my mom. I gotta go. Okay. Bye.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And the rule was always like, you don't tell them to call back. You get off the phone.
Yeah. No, same here.
And then it was, your friends are calling way too late, Sarah. This is not cool. Your friends are leaving weird messages on the answer machine. Also in my parents' bedroom. I don't really know why. And finally,
no calling during dinner time.
That too. Yep. And then finally, it was reluctantly, like it wasn't a present or anything. It was like, you're gonna have your own line because we just can't handle.
Oh wow, no. I think cordless phones came along around the time that my parents would have considered another line, and they were like, well, you just have cordless phones. So cordless.
I'm like, wireless. That doesn't sound right. Cordless phones. Yeah. Oh, first cordless phone. What fun.
I remember when my sister got in junior high and when she became a teenager, my parents sprang to buy the longer cord for the phone so that she could go around the corner into the living room and talk instead of having to bother dad while he was watching TV in the family room.
Of course, yeah.
Because we only had the one phone. There were no other phones in the house. It was just the one.
Yeah, it's so funny how, and I remember being
it was on the wall.
Yeah, the kitchen one was always on the wall. There was never like my parents had, sort of the tabletop, but it was, the cord, you kind of like, you're spinning around. My mom would always say, it's going to get all messed up. Stop doing that. Keep the cord intact. You're stretching it out.
It was a revelation the first time I used the phone with the longer cord. And I was like, I can go all the way over here around the corner.
I'm less tethered.
Technology is amazing.
Well, people with 2 lines I always thought were like super rich.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Like, ooh, they could pay for a second line.
It's like that's like having 2 cable lines in your home.
My dad did a splitter so that we could get the extra cable.
Back before they started trying to tamper-proof people stealing the premium stuff.
You couldn't get the like HBO Cinemax or channels above 13 on off the splitter.
I remember at the flea market, I remember this guy selling all these little adapters. Like, his little thing was get HBO for free. It was back when they modulated the signal in order to scramble it, but it wasn't that hard to come up with.
Captain Jack says second line was eventually dedicated to the dial-up modem. Dude, you're talking way farther down the line.
Yeah, this is like
we're talking pre-modem times.
Yeah.
Well, not pre-modem, but just like in the 80s. Because
I guess some people might have had a modem with their Commodore 64 or VIC-20 or something. But
I guess it was like the 90s. Do you guys remember Star 69?
Oh yes, that great REM song.
Which is funny because it existed before I had it. Like my parents had to, add it to the package or whatever. But I knew what it was. I knew that if somebody called you and pranked you or whatever, and you wanted, you don't get like an ID, but you call them back. I knew that it existed, and there were a couple of times where like, because teenagers are horrible. Like some boy, called me and, said something and then hung up. And I was like, I have Star 69. I know you did that. Total bluff.
Well, we're going to leave the network, and we'll stick around on the local channels for our continuing coverage, where Tom will sing Star 69. We'll say goodbye to the DTNS radio network.